Okay. So I saw you went to USC specifically for film scoring, but you didn't have a necessarily straightforward path to get there. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about what led you to ultimately ending up in that really prestigious program?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny how a creative life, I guess you might say, is not a linear one. And I've done a number of things from teaching music to playing in bands, uh, producing records for myself that were just weird and experimental, just doing all kinds of strange things that kind of gave me pleasure in those moments, and I followed that voice. And after I like to describe it as failing as a jazz guitarist. I tried to learn how to do that well in college, and I learned a lot, and I learned how to kind of be free and think about music in a way that I think has informed my creative life ever since. I think improvising is a really cool sort of introduction to music because it puts a lot of focus on your ear and listening and um, following those that vocabulary of thinking as you go, which I think is really fun. And eventually, I got into doing film because my partner at that time was an animator and she had made a stop motion animation and asked me to make the music for it. And I was just kind of blown away at how fun it was, specifically because the process is so collaborative.
Mhm.
And suddenly I wasn't just making music in the dark, so to speak, for myself. I was working on a team and trying to serve the story of the animation and making choices kind of crystallized a lot of my earlier musical musings. And so I was all gung ho to do film ever since.
Do you feel like with animation music, like you've done, it sounds like quite a few different like documentaries, features, a lot of food centric documentaries, and I feel like animation though is distinctly different in terms of what the purpose of the score is. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, definitely. The through line of all of it is you're making music to serve a story, to support a story and illuminate the emotional peaks and valleys and to leave space when it's necessary and to um, you know, I think, just put a lot of heart into the arc of these characters. And that part is the same, but the angle of approach is different. And depending on the um for animation, I feel like there's oftentimes a lot of like fast paced cuts or actions or just quick turns where you have to go from one emotion to a completely different one in a short period of time. And that's always kind of fun because it requires you to draw on a lot of different genres oftentimes or have a large vocabulary of classical music too, just to kind of have that referential aspect that I think you hear a lot and animated music. So it's always fun. It's a really cool challenge as like a detective, if you will, to
Yeah.
sort of figure out what those things are.
Would you say it's at all similar with Chef's Table? Because I mean, you've done quite a few episodes at this point, and now coming back for Chef's Table Legends, but each episode kind of has to be its own thing. So the turns aren't as quick, but it is still you're creating a cohesive TV show, but each episode is its own standalone thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's very well said. And I think the particular challenge of Chef's Table is not necessarily, yeah, the fast-paced element of it, but the need to localize your music in the world of each chef. So that takes you from Peru to Turkey to France to this country in the South or South Korea. I mean, all of these places kind of have a very distinctive character just as the food does. So having the music mirror that journey is the challenge of each episode and building that as an element into a score that kind of tracks the bigger narrative journey is the fun of it, I think, because you get to research all these cool places and I love to spend a good bit of time just going on YouTube and deep diving on all of these things. Like we did a, an episode for the pasta season on a chef called Night Yoon, and she's based in she's based in San Francisco, but she has a Cambodian background. And just learning about Cambodian music, even if I wasn't going to use it, I think was so helpful just for me to get into this headspace of what is this place and how does that relate to the food? And in many ways, music and food are these like open doors to a culture, maybe more than anything else, because you can just go eat that food and get a sense of like, wow, this is an amazing place with all this history and all this has amounted into this beautiful dish or this a beautiful piece of music. So I think as much as I can and just try and immerse myself in these places and in these chefs'
Mhm.
lives, they have a version of this in their own stories, too, which is fun to explore.
Yeah, I'm glad that you pointed out that you feel that music and food are very similar because it does. I feel the same way. I'm a big fan of Chef's Table and Top Chef and all these like cooking shows.
Cool.
I think they're both food and music are both about like nourishment and like music isn't necessary, but it's still and like food to the extent that they do it isn't necessary. Like it can just be basic beans and protein. But I think it's really interesting that the two play off each other in such a really unexpected way because it's two very different senses, you know?
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
I've thought about this sometimes. I think there's like a nostalgia aspect to
Mhm.
it as well, that when we hear something that we loved from some part of our life, that maybe we were going through this really painful breakup, or it was an ex incredible, exciting place, a time of learning and growth and change and expansion. And we were listening to something in that time that just captures that feeling of being human to us, that we can call back when we hear music, that same music many years later. And I think food very much, if not even more so, does that.
Yeah.
Just thinking about the food that your parents might have made you when you were a kid, or something that you when you first learned to cook a little bit yourself. If you had a success with a recipe, or a meal that was shared in a pivotal time with friends or something like that. That these things can really be connected to our like memories
Yeah.
of these places, both good and bad even.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and I think because we can't eat the food that we watch on Chef's Table or any kind of cooking related show, music is a nice way to kind of like be it's an analog for that same experience.
Absolutely. And so when you talk a little bit about like the different locations that you're going, because you are globetrotting throughout all of the show that you've worked on, when do you find that you've hit a research limit? Like I imagine as someone who loves music, it would be so easy to just like keep going down this rabbit hole and never finish anything. So
Yes.
when do you find like what is the stopping point for you?
Well, I have to say that the deadlines are our friends. The deadlines will always tell us, okay, it's time to just start writing and then see what comes out. Which is always the fun part, because I kind of think of it as like you've accumulated all of these things over your life, and they're if you will, they're like voices in a chorus, and you can just kind of pull them out as you need to, and hopefully that little research phase is just adding um, another little tool into your toolkit, or another voice into that chorus that you could then draw upon. But
Mhm.
when the rubber meets the road, we don't actually have a lot of time, so we just have to write and trust in that intuitive process.
Yeah. One of the episodes I want to ask about is Jose Andre. I've loved him for such a long time, and I think he does incredible things with his own cooking, but then also World Central Kitchen. And you had an experience with World Central Kitchen, and I was curious at what point in time to the scoring process did that come in? And did if you were already in that process, did your experience change the direction of the score?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because it ended up being an immersive experience for me. But would have had no idea when I was writing that music that it would be the last music I would write in my studio. And just if it's not clear, I lost my home in Altadena. I lost my studio during the Eaton fires, and it still is a journey of recovery, and it's been a tremendous emotional and sort of traumatic experience even. And when I was writing the music for Jose's episode, I had no idea. I was just um, Jose Andres is an amazing character. He's so inspiring and his broad, expansive approach, not only to, reinventing food and Spanish cooking and fusing it with Americana classics and things like this, but also as a humanitarian, he's just kind of here and he's there, and there's so much energy and so much passion, and he puts so much of his self into helping people. And that just was a tremendous inspiration for me. So the music was being written, and then we had kind of finished this process. I was actually literally doing the last song when the fire started, and I several days later that song was completed, and in the throes of all of this upset and getting our family to safety, I had a recording session with my partner on the score, David Burtok, and we recorded the music with an orchestra in Macedonia.
Mm.
And I think I had learned within 24 hours that we had just lost everything in our lives. And I just sunk myself into the music, and between takes, I was crying. I
Yeah.
was just sort of in shock and going through this incredible emotional experience. And hearing that music was just, I don't know, it's something I'll never forget. It was just a very intense and uh, I'm looking for the right word, just a three-dimensional experience, and there's an irony there that, that we were doing this abstract thing, and then Jose would sweep into my very neighborhood. I
Yeah.
never could have anticipated that. And but it's so beautiful at the same time if I can take a step back and abstract myself from my emotions a little bit. I mean, it's an amazing thing that suddenly there he was doing,
Hmm.
you know, the thing,
Yeah.
doing that for my community. And I know it had benefited so many of us, and I was able to thank him personally recently for it. And it's been a tremendous connection to me personally now for that reason.
Yeah, I'm so sorry for your loss. I have a friend in Altadena who also lost everything. And it's just, I used
Oh,
to live out there in Los Feliz, so it's very,
yeah.
yeah, it's awful.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for your friend too. I mean, we're going to make it through this.
Exactly.
We have to take things day by day,
Yeah.
and the amazing thing about all of it is the community has been
Mhm.
incredible. I just think people are so caring and loving, and I've met so many more of my neighbors now than I've ever known before the fire, which is just a testament to how committed everybody is to Altadena and to each other. And I think it's a great shining light in the face of everything else that's happening in our
Yeah.
country right now, which seems, like an apocalypse, nightmarish. It's the antidote to all of that, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. I'll end with a fun question. Just because I love cooking too. Do you ever find yourself like as you're scoring at the end, are you ever like, I think I could go make this? Or like, are you not a chef at all? Like, where are you in the level
Yeah,
of cooking?
I am a great food lover. I
Mm.
love food. I love eating. I have some experience cooking,
Mhm.
and I always enjoy it. And my better half, my wife Ashley, is a tremendous chef, and just at home, I don't think she has any aspirations, but she has the intuitive quality that I think you need to be able to see a bunch of ingredients and go, oh, what if I, dot, dot, dot. And I see her transform things that I would never know could even go together. And I think that's really fun. And I'll also add that cookbooks kind of can demystify some of if you don't have the that intuitive thing. It's really fun to just cook recipes. The director of Jose Andres and Thomas Keller, my dear friend Clay, we started this chef's table journey together on an episode about an Argentinian chef named Francis Mallmann 10 years ago. And he had a little sort of reunion party at his in his backyard the other month, and we cooked out of Francis's cookbook. So we did, the several, empanadas and some other dishes that were achievable with our tools. No, none of the lambs, and open
Yeah.
fires and burying vegetables in the earth, and it was fantastic. I mean, it was such a fun way to gather and sort of celebrate this journey together and eat some of the food that we had made. So
Yeah.
that was a fun little event.
Yeah, that's all. I'm similar to you that I rely on cookbooks, but it sounds like your wife should go on Chopped when they do the home
I
chef
mean,
one.
she could. If she wanted to, she totally could.
Well, thank you so
That
much,
would be
Duncan. This is
awesome.
great. I love
Oh,
I love
Tina.
Chef's Table. It's such a beautiful, relaxing show. I love it.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the kind words and the thoughtful questions. And it's been a pleasure to meet you as well.